Invitation. I revived in un cream linen paper envelope, heavy cardstock, with golden edges, weighty like a death sentence. It lay in the marble counter de minha kitchen island, innocent and terrible, surrounded by utility bills and gardening catalogues. I knew what was written inside even before breaking the custom wax seal. Melissa, my younger sister, always had a special talent for transforming cruelty into social etiquette. I opened the envelope. The cursive handwriting, drawn by a calligrapher hired for $400 an hour, danced on the paper. You are cordially invited to Melissa and Richard's baby shower. Come celebrate the arrival of our little prince. And there it was, on the bottom line, embossed in silver, the name that made the air leave my lungs and the floor disappear beneath my feet. Gabriel. My hand trembled violently, knocking over the coffee cup I was holding. The ceramic exploded against the floor, scattering dark liquid and shards everywhere. But I didn't move. I couldn't take my eyes off that name. Gabriel. My son's name. The name I whispered to my belly for 38 weeks. The name I screamed in agony during 20 hours of labor. The name etched on a small gray granite headstone in Oakwood Cemetery, under the shadow of an ancient oak, where I buried my boy exactly 18 months ago. He was born in silence, a true nut in the umbilical cord, the kind of rare statistical accident doctors call an unavoidable tragedy, but which a mother calls the end of the world. I picked up the phone, my fingers stained with cold coffee and shaking. I dialed Melissa's number. She answered on the second ring, her voice vibrant and irritatingly cheerful. "I knew you'd call. The invitation is beautiful, isn't it? The organizer suggested winter glow as the theme, since it's December." "Gabriel?" My voice came out hoarse, a scratch in my throat. "You're going to name the baby Gabriel?" There was a pause on the other end, not of guilt, but of that condescending patience she had perfected over the past few years, ever since she became the sister who has it all, and I became the broken sister. "Oh, Claire, please," she sighed. "I knew you'd be sensitive, but think about it. It's a beautiful name. It means man of God. It's a strong name. Richard loves it. We can't veto a classic name just because, well, you know, because you had a bad experience." "Bad experience?" I repeated, feeling the bile rise. "Melissa, my son died. His name is Gabriel. You held his body. You were at the funeral. You saw the tiny white coffin lowered into the earth." I know," she said, with the tone of someone dismissing a waiter. "And it was very sad, Claire. You need to move on. And honestly, I think it's a beautiful tribute, a way to keep the name in the family, but now associated with life, with joy. It's a healing, you understand? We're reframing the trauma." Reframing? The trendy therapy word she used as a weapon. "You're not reframing anything," I said, gripping the counter until my knuckles turned white. "You're stealing. You're erasing my son's memory to replace it with yours. You are not going to use that name." "The baby is mine, Claire." Her voice hardened, losing its artificial sweetness. "And the name is already decided. The layette is already embroidered. The nursery already has the letters on the wall. If you can't be happy for me, if you're going to bring this heavy, morbid energy to my baby shower, perhaps it's best not to come." She hung up. I stood in the kitchen, listening to the silence of my large, empty house. My husband, Tom, was away on business, as he always was lately. Since Gabriel's death, we had become two ghosts sharing the same zip code. He dealt with grief by working 80 hours a week. I dealt with grief by preserving every memory, every object, every syllable of my son's existence. Melissa always wanted what I had. When we were children, if I got a doll, she would cry until she got the same one. When I got into Yale, she had a meltdown until my parents paid a consultant to get her into Columbia. When I married Tom, a successful and handsome architect, she spent years making acidic comments about how he seemed tired of me, until she found Richard, a hedge fund investor with more money but less soul. But this was different from common envy. This was pathological. I walked to the room that was still the baby's room. The door was closed. I went in. The smell of talcum powder and lavender was still there, preserved like a museum. The empty crib, and on the wall, the hand-painted wooden letters, G-A-B-R. Melissa wanted this name. She said Richard loved it. But Richard was a man who called his friends' children expensive trophies. Richard didn't care about names. He cared about status. There was something wrong, something viscerally wrong with this story. Reframing the trauma didn't sound like Melissa. Melissa didn't fix broken things. She threw them away and bought new ones. Why would she want a name laden with so much family tragedy? Unless the name had a different meaning for her. Or for someone else. It was at that moment, standing in my dead son's room, that sadness gave way to something colder and more useful: suspicion. I decided I would go to the baby shower. Oh yes, I would. But I wouldn't bring diapers or onesies. I would bring the truth. The preparation for the event over the next 2 weeks was an Oscar-worthy acting exercise. I confirmed my attendance on the event website. I sent an expensive gift from the Pottery Barn Kids Registry, a state-of-the-art stroller, to keep up appearances. I called my mother, who, predictably, sided with Melissa. "It's just a name, dear," Mom said, her voice tense. "Melissa thinks it's a tribute. Try to see the bright side. We'll have a Gabriel running around the house at Christmas. Isn't that what you wanted?" The cruelty of that sentence almost made me vomit, but I swallowed. "Of course, Mom. You're right. I reacted badly. I'm looking forward to celebrating." While I feigned conformity, I began to investigate. I am a historical archivist by profession. My job is to dig into a past, find connections in forgotten documents, read between the lines of ancient diaries. I know how to follow trails people think they've erased. I started with the obvious. Why Gabrielle? Melissa said Richard loved it. Richard Miller, investor, arrogant, cold. I started monitoring his social media, his check-ins, tagged photos, nothing. He seemed like the standard trophy husband, playing golf and signing checks. Then I looked at my own husband, Tom. Tom was acting strange, stranger than usual. When I told him about Melissa's baby's name, he didn't get furious. He got pale. "She can't do that," he whispered that night, sitting on the edge of the bed, undoing his tie. "I know," I said, watching him in the mirror. "It's sick. You should talk to Richard, man to man. Tell him how much this hurts us." Tom looked away. I don't think Richard has much to do with it, Claire. You know your sister. When she gets something in her head. But he agreed, Tom. Melissa said he loves the name. Tom stood up abruptly. "I'm going to take a shower." That reaction, the evasion, the tremor in his hands. The next morning, I did something I promised I'd never do in our marriage. I took advantage of him being in the shower and grabbed his iPad. He changed his password frequently for company security, but I saw him type 1984 last week. It unlocked. I went straight to his messages. Nothing with Melissa, just mundane conversations in the family group chat. I went to his emails. Nothing. I went to the photo gallery. Pictures of construction sites, floor plans, contract PDFs, and then, in the recently deleted folder, which he forgot to empty, I found it. It wasn't a nude photo. It wasn't a love message. It was a screenshot of a WhatsApp conversation. The number wasn't saved, just the digits. The message read, "He's going to have your eyes. I'm sure of it. Gabriel is going to be our second chance." The message date was 6 months ago. I felt the ground disappear again, but this time I didn't fall. This time I floated in a vacuum of absolute horror. Second chance. Gabriel was our first chance, Tom and Claire's son, the son who died. If this new baby was the second chance and the name was Gabriel, I wrote down the sender's number. I rushed to my computer and ran it through a reverse data lookup site. I paid $20 for the premium report. The number belonged to a prepaid cell phone with no name registration, but the frequent location report showed that the device spent its nights at an address in Greenwich, Melissa's home address. Everything clicked into place. The macabre puzzle assembled itself before me, piece by bloody piece. Tom's business trips, Melissa's lunches with me, where she persistently asked how Tom was coping with his grief, the insistence on the name. It wasn't a name theft, it was a substitution. Melissa wasn't just pregnant, she was pregnant with my husband's child. And they were, in their shared, twisted madness, trying to recreate the son I lost. They thought they were fixing the universe's mistake. They were going to bring Gabriel back, but this time with the right mother. The mother could bear a living child. The nausea came on strong, but I swallowed it. No, I wasn't going to collapse. I had already cried all my tears at my son's grave. What remained in me now wasn't water, it was fire. The baby shower was in 3 days. I needed irrefutable proof. The screenshot was good, but they could deny it. They could say it was doctored or out of context. I needed something biological. I remembered the last family barbecue, 2 months ago. Tom and Melissa were talking near the pool. They laughed. Richard was drunk on the couch. I needed DNA. But how to get fetal DNA without them knowing? Impossible. But wait, Melissa was vain. She had that non-invasive blood test done in the first few weeks to find out the baby's sex, the NIPT test. The result was emailed to her, and she forwarded it to Mom. Mom printed it and put it on the fridge. I went to visit my mother that afternoon. "I came to get that apple pie recipe," I lied, entering the kitchen. While Mom searched in her recipe book, my eyes scanned the fridge. There it was, the Genetics First lab report. I quickly took a photo with my phone. It had the basic genetic markers of the fetus. It wasn't enough for a full paternity test, but it had the blood type and Rh factors. Baby, type O negative. Melissa,
type A positive. I knew we donated blood together in college. Richard, type AB positive. I saw it in his medical chart when he had appendicitis last year, and I took him to the hospital. Basic high school biology. An AB parent cannot have an O child. It's genetically impossible. The alleles don't match. Richard was not the father. But Tom was O negative, like me, like our Gabriel was. It was mathematical proof. Science doesn't lie, even if sisters do. I went back home and started preparing my gift. The baby shower would be at the Greenwich Country Club. There would be 50 guests, the social elite, my parents, Richard's partners, Tom's colleagues. I wasn't just going to reveal an infidelity. I was going to detonate a nuclear bomb in the center of their perfect living room. The day of the baby shower dawned gray and cold, but inside the country club ballroom, it was an artificial paradise of pastel shades and imported white flowers. There was a balloon arch that cost more than my first car. There was a harpist playing soft versions of Disney songs. And there was Melissa, sitting on a white velvet throne, literally a throne, wearing a blue silk maternity dress that made her look like a Renaissance Madonna. Richard was beside her, flashing that shark smile, accepting pats on the back from friends. Tom was there too, near the bar, looking like he was about to vomit at any moment. He saw me enter and his eyes widened. I was wearing red, a vibrant scarlet dress that cut through the sea of pastels and beiges like an open wound. "Claire," Melissa called from the throne, waving. The nervousness in her smile was visible only to someone who had known her since the cradle. "You came, and wow, what a dress!" "I wanted to celebrate life," I said, my voice clear, projecting over the harp music. I kissed her cheek. She smelled of her usual expensive perfume, but underneath, I caught the sour scent of fear. The party followed the script. Stupid games about guessing belly size, tiny canapés, non-alcoholic champagne. I participated in everything with a blade-like smile. It was time for presents. Everyone sat in a semicircle around the throne. Melissa opened box after box, designer onesies, imported strollers, wooden educational toys. "Oh, how lovely!" she exclaimed every 5 seconds. "Little Gabriel is going to love it!" Each time she said the name, I saw Tom flinch in the corner of the room. Richard, on the other hand, puffed out his chest. Poor, stupid Richard. He really thought the trophy was his. "And now," Melissa said, looking at the remaining pile, "Auntie Claire's gift." She picked up the box I brought. It was a flat, rectangular box wrapped in simple silver paper. "Must be a picture frame," someone commented. Melissa tore the paper. Inside, there was a large frame of noble wood. But there wasn't a cute painting of teddy bears. There was a document, a chart to be exact, colored, detailed, with footnotes. Melissa looked at the chart. Her smile froze. The color drained from her face so fast that the blush on her cheeks looked like clown paint. What is this, Claire?" she whispered, her hands trembling. "It's Gabriel's family tree," I said, standing up and walking to the center of the circle. "I'm an archivist, remember? I love origin stories, and I wanted Gabriel to know exactly where he comes from, the true meaning of his name." Richard leaned in to see. "Family tree? What a cool idea, Claire." "Look closer, Richard," I prompted. On the chart, I had put together a simple genetic diagram. At the top, mother, type A+, and legal father, type AB+. Below them, a red arrow with a large X and the phrase, genetic impossibility. And next to it, a dotted line connecting the mother to another man, biological father, type O-. And below biological father, I had pasted a photo of Tom. "Claire, what are you doing?" Tom shouted, stepping out of the shadows, knocking over a glass. "Stop this now!" The ballroom fell into absolute silence. The harpist stopped mid-song on Let It Go. "I'm just explaining the name, Tom," I said, turning to the guests, who looked shocked. You see, Melissa said she wanted to reframe the name Gabriel. I thought it was strange. Why use the name of her dead nephew? But then I understood. I looked directly at my sister. "You didn't want to honor my son, Melissa. You wanted to replace him. Because in your sick mind, and in my husband's mind, you both think this baby is the second chance. Gabriel 2.0, the version that works." "Shut up," Melissa screamed, standing up, clutching her belly. "Richard, get her out of here. She's crazy." Richard was looking at the chart. He was a man of numbers. He understood data. He looked at his blood type on the report I had attached in the corner of the frame, a copy of his appendicitis medical record. Then he looked at the baby's report. He turned to Melissa. His expression wasn't anger. It was something far worse. Calculation. "You said he was mine," Richard said, his voice low. "You swore. We did assisted fertilization at first, but you said you conceived naturally between cycles. You said it was a miracle." "It is a miracle, darling," Melissa sobbed, trying to hold his hand. "Claire is making this up. She's jealous." "Science isn't jealous, Melissa," I said. I took another paper from my purse, the WhatsApp message screenshot. And here's the proof of premeditation. He's going to have your eyes. Gabriel is going to be our second chance. Sent to Tom's phone 6 months ago. I tossed the paper onto Richard's lap. Richard read it. He looked at Tom. Tom was leaning against the wall, white as a sheet, sweating profusely. He didn't deny it. His cowardice was the final confirmation. "You slept with my wife," Richard said to Tom. It wasn't a question. "Richard, listen," Tom began, raising his hands. Richard didn't wait. He didn't make a dramatic soap opera scene. He simply took his wedding ring off his finger, placed it on top of the gift I had given, the chart of truth, and looked at Melissa with absolute disgust. "The show's over," Richard said to the room. "Everyone out." "Richard, no!" Melissa screamed, falling to her knees, her Madonna dress now looking like a ridiculous costume. "You can't leave me. I'm pregnant. What am I going to do?" "Ask the child's father for help," Richard replied, walking past her without looking back. "Or, rather, ask the sister you tried to destroy. It seems she's the only honest person in this room." The guests started leaving, whispering, horrified, grabbing their designer bags and fleeing the scandal. My mother was paralyzed in her chair, looking from me to Melissa, not knowing whom to blame. I stood in the middle of the wreckage. I looked at Tom. "You wanted a Gabriel," I told him. "Congratulations. You're going to have one. But don't expect me to stay and help raise him. My lawyers will be in touch on Monday. I'm going to take everything from you, Tom. The house, the investments, the reputation.
You'll wish you had died along with our first son. I walked to the exit. I passed Melissa, who was sobbing on the floor, surrounded by useless gifts. The name means man of God, Melissa, I whispered to her. But I think God just left the building. I walked to the country club parking lot, feeling the gravel crunch under my red leather heels. The sound was harsh, rhythmic, like breaking bones. The cold December air bit at my exposed skin, but I didn't feel cold. The adrenaline pumping through my veins was so hot I could have melted the snow accumulated in the ivy beds with just a touch. The valet, a young boy with acne and an ill-fitting uniform, looked at me with confusion. I was the first to leave the party. I should have been inside eating cake and celebrating life. Instead, I looked like someone que had just committed a murder. E, in uma maneira, I had murdered the illusion que held my family together. My car, I did, handing him the ticket. Now, as I waited, I heard the club door open violently behind me. Claire, for God's sake, wait! It was Tom's voice, the voice I had loved for 10 years, the voice that whispered vows of loyalty at our wedding, the voice that conspired to replace our dead son. I didn't turn around. I kept looking at the service entrance, praying the valet's Honda Civic would soon appear with my SUV. Tom caught up to me, grabbing my arm. His touch, once my safe harbor, now felt like a dirty stranger's touch. I pulled away with a violent tug, turning to face him. He was disheveled, his tie loose, his face stained with sweat and panic. "We need to talk," he gasped. "You got it all wrong. It wasn't malicious. We were suffering, Claire. Melissa was suffering because Richard treated her like an object. I was suffering because you shut yourself off in grief. We found each other in pain." I laughed, a dry, cutting laugh that echoed in the empty parking lot. "In pain?" I asked, incredulous. "You found each other in my bed, in my sister's bed, and decided that the best way to deal with the pain was to manufacture a baby and steal my dead son's name? That's not pain, Tom. That's narcissism. You wanted a Gabriel that didn't come with the weight of sadness. You wanted the Disney version of my tragedy. I wanted to give you a nephew you could love," he shouted, desperate, trying to rewrite history in real time. "I thought if he had the name, if he had my blood, you would smile again. I did this for us." The audacity of the lie took my breath away for a second. He was trying to sell the betrayal as an act of distorted altruism. "You didn't do it for us," I said, seeing my car approach. "You did it because you're weak. You did it because Melissa made you feel like the alpha male you never managed to be with me, because I was too busy grieving for our real son to massage your fragile ego." The valet stopped the car and jumped out, sensing the nuclear tension in the air. He held the door open, looking at the ground. "It's over, Tom," I said, getting into the car. "Don't go home today. I changed the alarm passwords before coming here. Your clothes are in trash bags on the porch. If you try to enter, the police will be automatically alerted." "You can't do that! The house is mine too!" he shouted, banging on the window glass as I locked the doors. "Talk to my lawyers," I said through the glass. "They'll explain to you how the infidelity clause in our prenuptial agreement works, the one you laughed at when my father insisted we signed it." I accelerated. In the rearview mirror, I saw my husband, my ex-husband, shrinking in the cold, a pathetic figure left behind as his world collapsed. I felt no pity. I felt only the surgical cleanliness of a tumor being removed. The following weeks were a blur of bureaucracy and silence. My house, once full of shared memories of a life together, became a sanctuary of solitude, and I loved it. I packed every one of Tom's belongings that I hadn't put on the porch and donated them to charity. Expensive suits, Italian shoes, golf clubs, everything went to a homeless men's shelter downtown. There was a poetic justice in thinking that the symbols of Tom's status now warmed men whom society and he himself despised. The divorce was a war. Tom tried to fight. He tried to claim I was emotionally unstable due to prolonged grief, attempting to invalidate the prenup. But he forgot a crucial factor: Richard. Richard Miller was not a good man. He was cold, calculating, and vengeful. But in this war, the enemy of my enemy was my best friend. 3 days after the baby shower, I received a package at my office, no sender. Inside, there was a USB drive and a short note typed on Richard's company letterhead. Use this. Destroy him. The USB drive contained everything. Richard had hired a private investigator months before, suspecting Melissa was spending too much. The investigator ended up finding something far worse than excessive spending. There were photos of Tom and Melissa entering hotels. There were receipts for dinners paid with Tom's architecture firm corporate card. There were call logs. Richard knew. He had known for weeks, perhaps months. He was just waiting for the right moment, or perhaps waiting to see if the baby was his. When I revealed the genetic impossibility, I merely gave him public permission to pull the trigger he had already cocked. I handed the USB drive to my lawyer. "This is devastating," my lawyer said, flipping through the transcripts. "Miss Clare, with this, he doesn't just lose the house. He could lose his professional license if we prove he used company funds to finance the affair. It's embezzlement." "Do it," I ordered. "Leave nothing." Tom was fired from the architecture firm 2 weeks later. The scandal in the small Greenwich elite was absolute. No one wanted to hire the architect who impregnated his sister-in-law and tried to steal his dead nephew's name. He became radioactive. And Melissa? The princess's downfall was slow and painful. Richard evicted her from the mansion in Greenwich. He showed no mercy. Their prenuptial agreement was airtight. In case of proven infidelity resulting in illegitimate offspring, she left with nothing but the clothes on her back and personal jewelry. She went to live with our parents, but even there the atmosphere was unbearable. My mother, who had always protected Melissa, was broken. The social shame was too great. She couldn't go to the supermarket without feeling stares. Melissa called me a month before the birth. "Claire," she said. Her voice no longer held the vibrant arrogance. It was thin, brittle. I need money. Tom is broke. He's living in a studio in Jersey City. He can't afford a good hospital." "Mom said she can't help me anymore porque Dad blocked her accounts to prevent her from giving me money." "And why are you calling me?" I asked, looking at the winter garden I was replanting. White roses for Gabriel. Because you're Mia's sister, and this baby is your nephew. He's your flesh and blood. Are you going to let him be born in a public hospital? Are you going to let your nephew be in need because of my mistake? A mistake? I stopped digging the earth. You called a year-long systematic betrayal and an attempt at identity replacement a mistake, Melissa? You didn't trip and fall on my husband. You planned, you coveted, you stole. I'm scared, Claire, she sobbed. Please, just help me with the delivery. I'm alone. I took a deep breath. The hatred was still there, hot and pulsating. But there was something else. There was the memory of my own labor, of the fear, of the pain. And there was the child, the innocent child who was being usada as a pawn in this macabre game. I'll pay for the hospital, I said, directly to the institution. Not a single cent will pass through your hand. And I'll pay for the basic layette, nothing designer, just the essentials. Thank you, thank you. Don't thank me, I cut her off. I'm doing this for the child, because he's not to blame for having detestable parents. But Melissa, listen carefully. If you dare put the name Gabriel on that birth certificate, I will withdraw every cent and sue you for emotional damages until you have to sell your hair to eat. I won't, she whispered. I promise. The baby was born on Uhane Tuesday in February. I went to the hospital. I didn't stay in the delivery room holding her hand. That was Tom's role. And he was there, looking 10 years older and dressed in cheap clothes. I stayed in the waiting room, watching the rain hit the window. When the nurse called me, I entered the room. Melissa was in bed, pale, holding a blue bundle. Tom was sitting in the armchair, his head down. I approached the acrylic bassinet. I looked at the baby. I had been afraid of this moment, afraid to look at him and see my son, afraid that he would have Gabriel's eyes, Gabriel's nose, afraid that my heart would break again. But when I looked at the newborn's wrinkled red face, I felt nothing. He was a beautiful baby, healthy, but he wasn't Gabriel. He had Tom's chin, Melissa's eyes. He was a biological blend of the two traidors. There was nothing of me there, nothing of my boy. The second chance they fantasized about didn't exist. It was just a new child with his own genetic makeup and his own destiny. The spell broke. The possession was over. "What's his name?" I asked, without touching the child. Melissa looked at Tom, then at me. "Noah," she said softly. "Noah Thomas." I nodded. "It's a good name. It means rest. I hope he brings some rest to the mess you two created." I left an envelope on the bedside table. Inside, there was a check to cover medical expenses and the contact information for a family mediator. "This is my last contribution," I said. "From now on, you are one family. Tom, Melissa, and Noah. You have each other. You don't need me." "Won't you want to watch him grow up?" Tom asked, with tears in his eyes. "Claire, he's your nephew." "I know who he is," I replied, walking to the door. "And I know who I am. I'm the aunt who pays the bills from afar, not the aunt who plays in the park. You broke that bridge. Don't try to swim across the river now." I left the room, and for the first time in 18 months, when I thought of the name Gabriel, I didn't feel a stab of pain. I felt only longing, a clean, pure longing. My son was mine. His memory was safe. No one could steal it, because no one could replicate it. A year passed. Life rearranged itself, as it always does. Nature abhors a vacuum, and my life, once empty, began to fill with new things. I sold the big house. It was too much space for one person, and too many ghosts in the hallways. I bought a historic cottage near the university, where I returned to teaching archival studies. The garden is smaller, but the roses grow better there. Tom and Melissa are still together, but it's not a fairy tale happy ending. It's a Soviet realism ending. They live in a 2-bedroom rented apartment. Tom works at a small firm, earning a third of what he used to. And Melissa? Melissa works. She's a receptionist at a dental office. My mother tells me, whispering, that they fight a lot, that Melissa throws it in his face that she lost her life of luxury because of him, that Tom throws it in her face that she seduced him. They live in the hell they built, chained to each other by a child and by a lack of options. It's a punishment more severe than anything I could inflict. As for Richard, he remarried 6 months after the divorce, a 24-year-old model. He sent me a thank you card at Christmas. Thank you for the clarity, it read. Cold, efficient Richard. Yesterday, I went to Oakwood Cemetery. It was Gabriel's 2-year death anniversary. The day was clear, the winter sun shining through the oak's dry branches. I cleared the leaves from the granite headstone. I placed a bouquet of fresh white lilies. Gabriel Miller, beloved son, eternal. I sat on the cold grass and talked to him. I told him about my new classes. I told him about the book I'm writing. I told him I miss him with every breath, but I've learned to breathe again. They tried to take your name, my love, I whispered, running my hand over the letters carved into the stone. But names are just words until someone gives them meaning, and the meaning you gave to my life, no one can copy. I heard laughter in the distance, another family visiting a loved one. Life goes on, relentless and beautiful. I stood up, brushed the dirt off my jeans, and looked at the sky. My sister's and my husband's betrayal almost destroyed me. They thought I was fragile, broken by grief, but they forgot that grief is, in its essence, love with nowhere to go. And that love, when compressed and cornered, becomes the most resilient material in the universe. I didn't lose everything. I lost what wasn't real. And what remained? My dignity, my kaher, the memory of my son is indestructible. What about you? What would Voces do if the people closest to you tried to rewrite your story for their comfort? Would you accept the edited version or fight for the truth, even if it cost your entire family? If this story about the sacredness of memory and the power of truth touched your heart, subscribe to the channel. Share your opinion. Would you have helped Melissa with the birth, or would you have let her face the consequences alone? Remember, your traumas are not templates for others' happiness. Your pain is sacred, and your recovery is your greatest revenge. You are stronger than you think.